Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session at the second annual Forum for Open Research. Thank you very much for joining us at this panel. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Good morning, delegates, and good morning, panelists as well. Please feel free to leave your comments in the chat. Please feel free to introduce yourself as well. Thank you very much for joining us. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Share your thoughts in the chat. You can leave your questions in the Q&A box as we go. We're going to have three panelists today. Each is going to speak for about 20 minutes, and that at the end, we're going to address your questions from the Q&A box. So please do leave your questions there. And without further ado, opening up this panel called Opening Up Around the World, Global Case Studies, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. His name is Jordan Bass. He's the coordinator for research services and digital strategies at the University of Manitoba Libraries. He oversees the portfolios of research data management and open scholarship, as well as digital initiatives and projects in libraries. He is a PhD candidate in history, and his research focuses on the topics of digital inequities in First Nations communities and the history of ICT in Manitoba. So without further ado, I'd like to open the floor, or the virtual floor, to Jordan to start us off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Jordan. It's all yours.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Everybody can see my screen. Isaac, just give me a thumbs up and I can... Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you very much. My name is Jordan Bass, and I work at the University of Manitoba Libraries in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm geographically located in southern Manitoba, where it is currently 2 a.m. or 2 in the morning, and we are getting our first snowfall, believe it or not. Today, I'll provide an overview of how the University of Manitoba Libraries have responded to open scholarship policy and initiatives since the early 2000s, as well as the challenges we have encountered along the way. The University of Manitoba is located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, as seen here on the map. The campus is located on the traditional lands of the Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people. I'll be discussing a number of key topics and events in this presentation as they relate to the history of open scholarship at the University of Manitoba, as well as in Canada more broadly. As such, I will discuss the following: early open access in Manitoba, the Canadian Tri-Agency Open Access Policy, the library's response, digital repositories, gold open access, open journal systems and article processing charges, APCs, the Canadian Tri-Agency Research Data Management Policy, repositories 2.0, transformative agreements, measuring openness, and finally, with the conclusion, are we open yet? Conversations about open access began in earnest around 2008-2009 at the University of Manitoba, as grant funding bodies in the United States and Europe began to mandate that certain grant-funded research projects make their publications freely available to the public. Organizations such as the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and the Wellcome Trust. Many Canadian universities were still grappling with the concept of open access and exactly what this meant for libraries. Of course, at the center of early discussions on open access was the cost of journal subscriptions from large academic publishers and the unsustainability of that economic model. But while some larger academic libraries were able to negotiate with major academic publishers, others were not. In these early years, there was a palpable dissonance between universities wanting to save money on academic publishing, but at the same time, still desiring to publish in those same highly priced journals. Although there would not be any true reconciliation of these issues during these early years, the University of Manitoba nevertheless began to engage with open source technologies such as DSpace, PKP software, and began to host Open Access Week events. Between 2008 and 2015, open access publishing mostly involved posting electronic theses and dissertations within our institutional repository. We had one open access journal and only a handful of preprint publications. However, in 2015, the Canadian Tri-Agencies, which is the Canadian national and largest grant funding body, published its open access policy, which stated, as publicly funded organizations, the agencies have a fundamental interest in promoting the availability of findings that from the research they fund, including research publications and data, to the widest possible audience and at the earliest possible opportunity. Societal advancement is made possible through widespread and barrier-free access to cutting-edge research and knowledge, enabling researchers, scholars, clinicians, policymakers, private sector, and not-for-profit organizations, and the public to use and build on this knowledge. This policy is noteworthy for two reasons. First, it articulates and also perpetuates the notion that open access of scientific research contributes to the advancement of society. Second, this policy showed that open access contributing to the knowledge economy was supported by the Canadian federal government, who also stated, grant recipients are required to ensure that any peer-reviewed journal publications arising from agency-supported research are freely accessible within 12 months of publication. I will return to this open access requirement shortly. The University of Manitoba Libraries was well poised to respond to the 2015 Tri-Agency Open Access Policy. For instance, we had a well-supported institutional repository for green deposit of research publications. We began to mint DOIs, direct object identifiers, for publications so they could be more easily citable and discoverable, and continued to preach the gospel of the benefits of open access insofar as they related to free and easy open publishing. The University of Manitoba Libraries' response to open access policy and cultural change continue to evolve rapidly to include a research data repository, massive upgrades to our institutional repository, as well as new academic librarian positions to support open scholarship. These investments were all predicated on the common good appeal of open scholarship, as well as the supposed requirement of the tri-agency, even when that common good had yet still to be defined in terms of being quantified and qualified locally with the experiences of professors, students, and of course, cost to the university. It's important to note here that while the tri-agencies mandated open access publishing, little was done to audit if grant recipients were complying with that requirement. This lack of compliance oversight resulted in a dearth of research publications in our institutional repository. By 2017, major academic publishers seemingly clued into grant funder requirements of publishing in open access and introduced an economic model where academic authors could publish in their journals openly and thereby meet grant funder requirements, but at a price, and a very high price. The cost of gold open access is, just as the name suggests, expensive. The average article processing charge, or APC, for an author at the University of Manitoba is between $1,500 and $3,000 per article, and that would be in US dollars. There are no central university funds to offset these APC costs, and many authors pay them through professional development funds, grant funds, and in some cases, out of pocket. What this means is that money that should be allocated for research staff, equipment, and other expenses is going towards open access publishing, again, to meet the grant funder's open access requirement. The libraries have seen a somewhat limited uptake with its open journal system, or OJS, where authors can create their own open access journal with built-in peer review functionality. The primary reason for this, I believe, is because self-published research articles simply do not hold the prestige that major academic journals do, and the APC cost of doing business is something researchers are willing to bear. The libraries continue to provide discounts on APC costs through agreements with publishers, but these discounts remain at 10 to 15% of the total charge. While most open scholarship at the University of Manitoba continue to focus on making research publications open, the same Canadian tri-agency has announced its intention to make open research data an additional requirement. Again, using comparable language, the tri-agency stated, The agencies believe that research data collected through the use of public funds should be responsibly and securely managed and be, where ethical, legal, and commercial obligations allow, available for reuse by others. Though not formally ratified until 2021, the tri-agency announced its research data management intentions in 2016. So while libraries and academic institutions in general across Canada were still grappling with open access publishing, the data supporting those publications was also being made mandatorily open. In addition to grant funding agencies requiring that research data be freely available to non-academic sectors, some publishers also began to ask authors to provide the data used to support their articles. While ill-articulated definitions of what actually constitute research data, as well as a host of new repositories and services being developed at the U of M libraries, we began to develop a suite of tools and services that were created to support geographic information systems data, or GIS data, a robust data preservation pipeline built on Archivematica software was also put into production. Online data management plan tools, data management plans also being a requirement of the tri-agencies, were launched. And a new coalition of libraries and central IT data storage platforms were made available to the research community. All to say, the university had substantive digital infrastructure and human resources to support the publishing of open research data. And yet, the question that was asked was, what is the return on investment for all of this open research dissemination? Canadian research-driven university libraries have begun to band together to better negotiate with major academic publishers, much in the same way that large universities in the United States had done almost a decade before. Canada has entered into a number of transformative agreements, which are defined as the transformation of the traditional subscription system, where the libraries are essentially footing the cost of journal access so that library users can not only read the content, but also that University of Manitoba researchers who want to publish their articles as open access in those journals can do so without incurring extra fees. While this sounds like a good deal, it actually is not as transformative as it is made out to be. For example, article processing charges are still paid by the researcher, and although there are discounts, the economic model still sees the researcher paying significant sums of money to publish, while their parent university library pays those same academic publishers for open access. At the same time, libraries provide a tremendous amount of support to researchers to help them find the best discount available for open journals in their field, help them navigate copyright issues, and also help ensure that the journals they publish in are able to meet the grant funding open access requirements, which typically involve publication embargoes and or restrictive preprint criteria. In an attempt to quantify and qualify the progress of the library's open scholarship initiatives, our institution has engaged with traditional bibliometric analysis with researcher output in the open ecosystem, as well as alternative metrics to gauge those outputs captured in media, social media, policy, and patents. For the unacquainted, all scholarship metrics, both traditional and alternative, will require that a persistent identifier is attached to each article, dataset, media mention, policy, etc., in order for those objects to generate statistics. While most research output comes equipped with a DOI, handle, or other persistent identifier, there are significant challenges to tracking this research output. What I mean by this is that in the absence of a centralized research information management system, or RIM, our institution has been unable to genuinely evaluate the progress of our open scholarship. DOIs and accurate author affiliation data is paramount to our successes and shortcomings in open scholarship, but there is a lack of commitment from the parent institution on the responsible use of metrics and how to move forward in a way that would demonstrably show the progress of libraries' open scholarship initiatives, while at the same time respect the academic freedom of our researchers. So, are we open yet? As someone who has participated in and overseen many of the U of M library's open scholarship projects, I can say that we have met open scholarship requirements and targets consistently. At the same time, the commitment or lack thereof with open publishing amongst researchers remains an issue. Open scholarship in our university is a paradigm shift, and the corresponding cultural upheaval resulting from it is likely not going to be settled anytime soon. The moral economy of open scholarship, where money expended benefits the common or public good, still remains at odds with a very capitalistic model where open scholarship must benefit those entities with corporate financial interests first and foremost. I am grateful for being able to participate in this panel today, and I'm very much looking forward to discovering new ideas and approaches to changing institutional perspectives and culture around open scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Thank you for that very thought-provoking presentation. It's very interesting to see what's happening at the University of Manitoba and Canada in general. I'm sure we'll have some questions at the end about what's happening in Canada. Before that, I'd like to move on to our next speaker. Her name is Sosol Somokian. She's the academic manager of the intensive English program at Box Hill College in Kuwait. She's also a public speaker and a teacher training. She holds an MA in speech language pathology from the Pedagogical University of Yerevan and an MA in education from the Universiteit van Amsterdam. Her research interests include project and problem-based learning, sustainable education, data-driven and brain-based teaching, and developing critical thinking and employability skills in students. Without further ado, Sosol, I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that generous presentation, Isaac. I will just need a minute to share my screen.
No problem. Take your time.
Thank you. Can you all see my screen? Are we fine?
Yes, it looks good. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So my topic today will be from the perspective of higher education institutions and where we stand now, and what are some of the challenges and the strategies of collaboration that we can implement in order to provide better education to our students and build capacity as future leaders who can drive these economies, sustainable economies. As we all know, United Nations' fourth SDG was quality education, where education is for everybody, and there are certain criteria like lifelong learning and equality, equity, etc. I'm sure all participants are very familiar with that notion, so I'm not going to go into it. I'll just briefly go over the main points where higher education institutions' role lies and where we stand now. So according to UNESCO, the higher education institutions were expected to play a key role in achieving the SDGs by 2030. And the three areas in which they were responsible to act was in raising awareness about sustainability, in advocating for environmental issues in their communities, and in preparing the workforce as change agents who will build sustainable economies of tomorrow. According to UNESCO, students of universities should not only have the information, but also be equipped with critical literacy, social connections, be able to do appreciation of the information that they receive, also be sort of like more diverse in their implementation of the knowledge, and have the moral responsibility and be civically engaged in their own communities to address all the pressing issues locally and universally. Among these things, UNESCO indicated that higher education institutions could probably implement more work-based learning, project-based learning, student-centered approaches in order to equip students not only with the knowledge needed, but with also hands-on experience in tackling some of the challenges that we all face in our communities and around us in the environment. So the basic principles for sustainable education are transformation and change, lifelong learning for all, systems thinking, like where students have not only to think about the problem itself, but develop systems thinking abilities for a better future, of course, develop critical thinking skills and participate and be active in their communities and become factors of change in their own societies. So the question is, and in this talk, I will try to briefly address these. Where do we stand now in the Gulf regarding these challenges? What are these challenges? How can we cooperate different higher education institutions to provide these curricula and to build capacities in our students? And how can we collaborate and work with our own communities or local businesses to achieve these SDGs by 2030? So what are some of the challenges that the universities are facing? Of course, it's multi-level. The first level is the students themselves. They have very limited awareness and concern for sustainability issues. They drive very heavy cars. They consume a lot of food. They throw it away. The consumption of plastic and all kinds of things that pollute our planet is they're basically not aware of, and they are not very mindful of the how their personal use and consumption is impacting their environment, their surrounding. For example, wasting electricity, turning on keeping their cars on just to be a little bit more cool in the parking before they get into the car and they drive away. So these are just very personal, quick examples, especially for those who are not from the region, that show the level of lack of awareness among students themselves regarding these matters of sustainability. In addition to that, they have lack of interest and willingness to participate in their own societies when there are some initiatives that teach or to practice sustainability. So they need to be taught. All of these concepts need to be taught. But then you have this gap between the theory, which is being given in classes, in courses. For example, a lot of universities which teach architecture and engineering, they have implemented sustainability concepts into their courses. However, there is a gap between the theory that the teachers are delivering, are explaining in class, and the practice that is happening in real life. Then so there is this discontinuity. At the level of institutes, you have a big need to train teachers to become themselves informed and educated and knowledgeable about sustainability, so that they can, first of all, change the curricula or prepare curricula where all these sustainability goals are embedded. Maybe there are areas where we are already touching up on things, for example, in geography, in mathematics, in environmental sciences, but we are sometimes teaching content without being aware that this is a point that we should highlight as leading to more sustainability and better future for our population and for the society and the world at large. So just being aware of certain things and highlighting things, and also sort of embedding, if it doesn't exist in our curricula, embedding those values, embedding that knowledge into our curriculum needs teacher preparation. So teachers themselves need to be educated to prepare their curricula, their assessments accordingly, and to use teaching and learning methods that can get these concepts across much easily and in a more student-friendly way and in a more practical way. So teaching, student-centered teaching approaches and learning methods are important. Interdisciplinary approach to developing curricula is essential. Basically, where we stand now is that we have sort of lack of agility to move from our traditional programs to more student-centered and problem-based teaching and learning methods. So these are, as I mentioned, we need mastery level know-how, the teachers themselves, in order to take interdisciplinary approach to curriculum development in education for sustainability. And we need that agility, pedagogical agility, to allow students to explore the problems themselves, to come up with solutions, and to interject our own ideas, and somehow encourage them to read more and research more in order to get this, to develop the knowledge themselves. So that is where we stand now. Overall, there is a need for capacity building among educators, and in order to save time and energy. We usually, academic institutions, work like silos. Sometimes even within the same university, a faculty in or a department is developing something and the other department is unaware of. So sort of we need to overcome this silo culture and exchange as much as we can within our institutions, I mean, within each university, and then among universities in the Gulf. So that will help us set the priorities right, and that will also help us exchange all the curricula and all the knowledge that we are sort of accumulating as we delve into creating more student-centered curricula and curricula where sustainability is at the core of the program. What are the areas where we can contribute in? So one of the areas that we can contribute is by integrating our curricula. So courses that cover topics such as environmental conservation, renewable energy, sustainable business practices, social responsibility should sort of merge their efforts to come up with more integrated curricula. We need to establish research centers within institutes that are dedicated to sustainability and environmental studies. These centers will conduct research on the regional level and will come up with the main challenges and solutions that we are facing regarding sustainability. Some campuses, I can give you the example of the Qatar campus, who started an initiative of a green campus. So there are lots of things that we can do at the campus level to our operations to encourage a green campus culture, such as saving paper and creating green areas everywhere. All of these needs know-how and knowledge, and this know-how should be shared among universities and campuses, especially in the region, who share the same kind of climatic conditions. And we need to come up with better solutions for energy efficient buildings and waste reduction in our own universities. Another level that we need to share forces with is with the community. So there are some things that we can do by engaging, by being active in our own communities, with all the NGOs or organizations which are working on sustainability to address these issues and challenges. And we can also we can encourage our students to lead those initiatives. So the other level of cooperation will be faculty development, where we share or exchange faculty by like either exchanging faculty for a semester or just inviting and organizing workshops where education and information could be shared among faculty regarding curriculum development and knowledge on how to use methodologies that can best activate student interest in studying these sustainability issues and becoming more active in regarding these matters. The other area of collaboration is with the industry, where we can collaborate with industry partners to offer internships and research opportunities to our students and help them gain practical experience related to sustainability and green technologies. And finally, we can probably work together on reporting about our achievements, publishing our yearly reports regarding how are we tracking the act and how are we communicating to communicate our progress regarding these sustainability goals. Another area of cooperation could be with the larger community regarding transportation, energy sector, environmental awareness campaigns that other community entities are implementing, are doing, or collaborating with research institutes regionally and internationally, and also trying to find international partnerships with universities out of the Gulf area to share best practices and promote global sustainability initiatives. So basically, this is the cycle that needs to be, that we need to keep always in mind. We need to understand the problem, help our learners understand the problem by building knowledge and skills regarding these matters and issues, and then give them the time and the kind of educational program where they can critically analyze these problems and come up with solutions. And once they figure out the solutions locally, they can take initiatives as you students or as part of NGOs, and show their citizenry to their communities by either doing campaigns or participating in real actions on social media, or basically doing things on the ground. So my next topic will, or my next slide is about, again, incorporating efforts. Something that is very encouraging to see regionally now is that there are a lot of initiatives to do some sustainability programs, and they are sharing this information. They're finding business partners to sort of come in and provide feedback on how our students are doing. They are also incorporating, higher education institutions are incorporating with businesses to get internships and to get students involved in projects where these projects are meant to provide, to work on these sustainability goals. Another thing that could be done is by creating sustainability awards and competitions between universities, or by among universities, within the universities for each course. Green certification, pursuing green certifications for campus facilities is another aspect that can encourage faculty and students to drive these sustainability programs and to get them on board actively working on these sustainability goals, starting from their own campuses, their own buildings. There are also different areas that students can be encouraged to work in, such as in agriculture and food initiatives. There are some activities, for example, in Kuwait, I'm aware of a project which is happening in Jahra area, where they're trying to implement sustainable agriculture approaches with organic farming. Engaging our students in this kind of school trips and actual projects to work on helps them gain awareness and also spread that awareness among their peers and their community. Environmental studies programs, cultural heritage preservation is also another point which is being recently very much emphasized in the Gulf region. We have now a lot of buildings in Kuwait on which students, architecture students and engineering students are working to preserve the cultural value of buildings, and these buildings are under renovation, but these students are tasked by coming up with smart solutions to maintain the cultural value, preserve the cultural look, the facade of the building, while making it also environmentally friendly and applying all the sustainability criteria of modern buildings and architecture. Now, strategies that can help us establish knowledge and build knowledge or share knowledge among universities. First of all, probably coming up with interdisciplinary centers where this knowledge, which is accumulated within each university, could be shared. Another thing is the mentorship programs, exchanging faculty members who can share their knowledge and know-how about sustainability development initiatives that they already implemented in their own colleges or in their departments, could be shared across universities. Some of these strategies through which universities can foster meaningful collaboration and knowledge sharing in the field of education will be basically implementing sustainable development and contributing to more sustainable and responsible future. So collaborating within ourselves, within the institutions, and collaborating with the community at large through businesses, through NGOs, through different initiatives, and even governmental sector who is working in the on environmental issues. The other slide, now the next slide that I'm showing you is about basically how the strategies that could be done on the academic level, where we can join forces to develop curricula together. We can join forces to organize conferences and workshops, and we can have exchange programs among faculty. Some of these ideas were discussed earlier, so I'm not going to go into depth with it. One way to inform the community at large of what we are doing is probably by creating these online platforms where we can not only save the knowledge which is being built, but we can also share with each other through open access resources, what is being done in every university, in every department, and how that could help others, especially the GCC countries which share the same kind of conditions. Another area of collaboration will be by creating student exchange programs, where students can build experience on different ESD initiatives, and we can foster a more global perspective among them. Another area where we can engage is with the community, encouraging universities to collaborate with our local communities on ESD initiatives to create opportunities for experiential learning and knowledge sharing. Of course, joint research projects will be ideal to have. Research collaborations with external stakeholders is another area where we can collaborate with government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and industry stakeholders to come up with projects where we can build not only our own knowledge, but we can share what we know with all these stakeholders who are working to develop the sustainability economies, and they are working towards the sustainability goals. So basically, any venue through which we can share data by creating databases or repositories of ESD-related data and research findings will be ideal to save time, to save energy, and to reach to the goals as quickly as possible. And also it's a repository or a database where we can pile all these and share these educational resources and materials and make it accessible not only for colleges and universities, but for the community at large. Another area where we can work with and collaborate is by creating networks, forming networks where we can advocate for policy change. We can advocate for lifelong learning on these issues, incorporating our alumni, engaging with the society at large. And we can also probably help and monitor and evaluate with these networks what is happening in different areas and in institutions, so that we can ensure continuous improvement. International partnerships are always, of course, something that we seek to achieve, because especially in the West, they are way ahead in incorporating these notions into their academic programs. All right, so I am, I think, almost out of time. And as education, as Nelson Mandela said, is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. So given the paramount challenges that we have today, especially in GCC, I think collaboration and working together is the only way out. And thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to introduce our last panelist of this panel. His name is Mohit Garg. He's the Senior Scale Assistant Librarian at the Central Library of the Indian Institute of Technology in New Delhi. Before joining the Institute of Technology, he worked as Assistant Librarian at Indira Gandhi National Tribal University in Madhya Pradesh. His areas of interest are around application of ICT, research methodology, research ethics, information retrieval, data science, and machine learning. So I'd like to give it to you, Mohit. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Isaac, for the nice introduction. Thank you, whole F.O.R.M team, for giving me this opportunity to present like my thoughts on these two softwares. So I'll be just sharing the slide, and I hope it's visible.
It's visible.
So I'll go with it's just a second.
It looks
so
great from my side.
Limited from my side, limited internet connectivity. So I just I will stop my video, but yeah, I'll be like that. Okay. So thank you all for this. So I'll start with where our earlier speaker has ended with the quote of Nelson Mandela, that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And that's what this whole open source community is doing from their huge contribution and to providing different kind of softwares for the betterment of the society. So I'll just why my screen is yeah. So I'll just start with a thing that in the present, maybe before present, that libraries are hub of number of documents, and it's the duty of the library to provide easy access to the users. And good old days, before the computer era, this service we used to provide through manually and using, like, we have their own card catalogs and different services we used to provide. So that's how we generally provide the services to the user, so that our user can easily get the resources and easily get to familiar with all the kind of documents available in the library. But computer came, and after that many software have been emerged, so that to develop many software have been developed to ease down our library work. And library have been, like you say, the library are the early adapters of the technology, and they implemented many of the softwares for different purposes in their respective library. But due to various constraints, and one of the constraints mainly in developing country we have, that is because the software which earlier come, they generally are the commercial one, and there have been a lot many dependent on those softwares from those commercial side, and we can't customize, and some of the software couldn't they didn't follow the international standards, all those things. So, and due to and like if we talk about in developing countries, the major concern about the budget and the uh, uh, lack of number of staffs in the library. So these are the parameters what required by the library to a need of a software which is like they can use for their different operations of the libraries, and they can customize whatever like their requirement is as per so they can do by their own. So this software come up, and there are like many software have emerged. Not I'll speak about Koha, but this is one of the software which have emerged as a powerful and popular software in the library community to support our user, and to provide the easy navigation, so that they can get the it's not only for the like it's not providing the digital interface to the catalog, but it's also support the staff side, so that they can do the whole library work through this software, and they can like many of the things like we have to do analysis, like which are the users which are not coming to the library, they are not taking up the book, and which are the books or our documents are not used by the users of the library. So we have to think of the strategy, so that they can we can make a strategy so that they can use those documents and all. So this particular software has changed traditional library by providing a very cost effective in the sense, like many of the organizations, they are like, if they don't have the server and kind of, they are going for cloud, or they are not having the technical skills, or they are taking any of the agency for the installation on using this software. But yeah, it's a free solution, and it's a cost effective, customizable. You can customize based on your requirement, like you want to use any of the other standards, you want to use either UDC, or you want to use DDC, or any of the classification scheme you follow, you can use that. Then one of the point which is which is the beauty of any of the open source software, because open source software can only survive when it has a strong community support, because the whole purpose of this software is not to earn money and not to gain some profit. So that's the thing, and we need the community. We need all of the community members to support and to spend their time for the development and for resolving the bugs. So that's it has a very wonderful community, and they have a very active community, and it has enhanced all our library operations. It has provided the accessibility and also collaboration with the library, interlibrary loan, and all those things can be done, and providing a more user-friendly experience, so that user not only like when they come, they are not only they're coming for the just issue and return. They can also browse the collection from our particular resources, and then they can get, okay, these are also the collection available. So what the benefit of this, of course, like what I have been continuously saying, it's an open source software, and it's freely available. One can install on anywhere. Cost effectiveness, and then customization. So you can customize like this is my staff page of our Koha, but the opaque you can customize as per your requirement. And if you see like big organization, what they are doing is that they're using Koha opaque. Koha is a different software, than they're using another open source like any Drupal and Joomla for content managing of their website and all. But if you are using Koha, you can, as a small library, you can use this particular opaque of this software as your website, and you can provide the all details and link to your content. Okay, so that's one of the important advantage of using this software. And then interoperability. The point is that Koha is designed in such a way that it can be worked with other library standards and system. And the scalability is one of the parameters. Like you can scale up to whatever, like if you want to use for it a small library, you can use it. If you want to use for a big library, you can use it. So whatever the collection you have, you can use this particular software for this and for your whole operations in the library. And since it has you see the community and number of installation, this has been grown like anything for this particular software. And that's particular, and it has become a one-stop solution for only for print collection. Okay, and of course you can add the detail, but it has like mainly related to the print collection. So at the present, when it was like 1 year before, it was a dedicated software for print resourcing, and they can do for all kind of things from here. So another aspect of another one popular software is this DSpace, and DSpace is a popular software for building an institutional repository. So whatever the content you have, and you can provide here, and so that user can have the access of that. And this is again like I'll not speak again about all those benefits, but it is also the strong community, and you can one can easily put up their all content with all their searching facility, and it can be integrated with whatever your discovery platform is. So what's the problem is that these two software, like one of the like Koha software is for the print resources, and then DSpace is the managing the our whatever the digital resources we have, and we can have on their server, and we can provide the access. But in the present, in the future and current future, if we speak about, is that we have the lot many electronic resources are there, lot many ebooks are there, e-journals are there, we have the databases, and we need a software, because like there is one another solution for managing the e-resources popularly known as Coral. But the problem with the Coral is that the community is not that too strong, and it has like very limited installation in the end. So that's why there is a need of a software or an existing software which can provide the all these solutions, because libraries are like procuring these e-resources with along with the print resources. So this one of the things they have come up with the latest latest version of Koha with the e-resource management, and e-resources like and under e-resources, you have the like different operations, like you need the license management, you need the agreements, you need the user statistics, how users have been there. So that's why, so this, they have come up with the new version on this. And with this, because now this version is not that much like ERMS supported, but in future, like I'll believe that in 1 or 2 years, it will be powerful software for even managing whole your collection in the library. So it will be, though you don't have to use 2 different software um, for your library, for one for print and one for digital resources. You can use this particular software for managing all your collection at this single place. Okay, so this is how the community is growing, and they are working on that. And it has at presently, you can add license and agreement manually, and there is a means you can use the API, and then you can add the knowledge base. But it's not that yet developed. But yeah, I see in coming days it will be more developed in a way. Another, yeah. Now with the DSpace 6, when we were like using DSpace 6, it was like it was mostly related to the documents, and we used to upload our question papers, thesis, dissertation, and we provide the access to that, and then then we provide then user can get the access through that. But with the DSpace 7, the new version, it has come, and it is also like Koha only. This software is also releasing a stable version of this particular software in this year. Like here, they have released I think 2 or 3 versions of DSpace 7. As DSpace 7.4 has been released. So why we need DSpace 7 is because DSpace 6 has some limitation, because it only only provides some text document on only for the some text formats. But with DSpace 7, you means one can not only upload, one can not only provide PDF content, but they can also upload like all Microsoft format, Excel, PowerPoint, CSV, HTML, TXT, and all other open document formats. Also, one can easily provide the integration with external identifier system like ORCID, or with the current research information system or journal publishing system. So that can be integrated, and you can use the REST API for building, like you're connecting the multiple systems using this DSpace 7. And if you've seen like earlier, like in DSpace 6, the version, like it has 2 interface, JSPUI and XML UI. But now this time they have made it a user interface that is based on Angular JavaScript framework, which is a very like it giving a good experience to the user, and one can use for providing all kind of these service, all kind of content to from this platform. So in future, like they are like still in the, like I'll say the DSpace 7 and this Koha latest version mainly focused related to ERMS, and DSpace 7 related to maybe this data repository and all. So they are still, I'll say, in an infancy stage, because not they are that much compatible. They are compatible, but they are like people are not still using it, and they have like couple of installation I've seen they are there, but still people are waiting for these things so that they are more stable, and then they will go to the migrated to this particular software. So yes, so the path is like they have already developed and it's smooth, but so the path is they have already made it. They will, I think, in a couple of years or maybe in next year, they will make it as a software with more features, and so that this road will be smoother for the library professionals to implement this software in the library. And yeah, and in future I'll see these 2 software will be dominating in the library services. Thank you all. So this is all about these two popular software, and I am open to questions if any you have.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting to see how open source solutions are being used in the libraries. I just want to remind our delegates to pop your questions in the Q&A box, if you have any. We're now going to open it up to the Q&A section, the Q&A part of this panel. I have a question myself as we wait for some more questions to come in the Q&A box. We have a few already. I have a question for Jordan, if you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jordan. I'm only saying that because it's 2 a.m. or now it's about 3 a.m. for where Jordan is. So just in case he dozed off. No. Jordan, I think it was really fascinating to see the policies that the Canadian government put in place starting around 2015 with the tri-agency open access policy. As you know, this forum was set up really to discuss open access around the world, but also it's a membership organization around establishing those policies and regulations around open access for the MENA region, here in the region where I'm based at the moment. I'm in Dubai. So it's really interesting to see what other countries have done and how they started and what worked and what didn't work. And as a historian yourself, I'm sure you're interested in not only history repeating itself, but in repeating itself in a positive way. So taking the good things and leaving the bad behind. So my question to you would be, what can other nations or regulating bodies learn from the policies that the Canadian government put in place, starting with the tri-agency open access policy, but beyond as well, the things that happened later in 2017 and beyond? Which parts of it would you suggest other nations and regulating bodies adopt, and which parts would you suggest they avoid, or what didn't work so well, and what could other nations take on from that?
No, that's a great question. Thank you. I think the biggest thing, and I maybe didn't get to it in my presentation, is there's been, as I kind of mentioned, a lack of auditing for compliance with open access policy. So what that means is it's really on the honor system, or tends to be on the honor system, where a grant funder is required to publish their findings openly in an article. There's no way to track that, for lack of a better word. There are new initiatives coming where that will happen. But what we saw with open access publishing is repeating itself with open research data. It's kind of the same thing. Again, open research data is a little newer. So there's kind of some things baked in that will help audit compliance. And I guess one of the largest kind of initiatives that are happening on that front are national data repositories. So in Canada, we have 2 nationwide research data repositories where most grant-funded researchers are publishing their data. And that means that the Canadian federal government and the tri-agencies are able to audit for compliance. So I think without that, I guess that stick for researchers, it's really hard to change the culture. And that's kind of what I concluded with, is it's very difficult to change the culture of a research community to move more towards open in terms of publications and data if there's really no major incentive to do so. So I guess to circle back, I think making auditing mandatory would be a huge plus.
Right, that makes sense. And that incentivization, I think, is very difficult otherwise. Has there been any other moves towards incentivization that you can see in Canada that are sort of starting up at the moment?
Yeah, I think something that's, I think, working for researchers in the humanities and social sciences is that, well, traditional bibliometrics, which are pulled from major publisher data pools that they might not be reflected in. I'm not going to name the names. We've looked at alternative metrics to see where their research is being used in traditional, mainstream media, but also social media and policy. And it's surprising, even from a field like history, to see where articles, even book chapters are being referenced. Not in the bibliometric sense, but also more in the alternative metric sense. So yeah, it's a new thing, but it's helping to incentivize social sciences and humanities researchers a little bit more, I think.
Right, that's interesting. Well, something you mentioned earlier about your national data repositories ties in well with the question that we just got through in the Q&A, and that is, what can libraries do to promote self-published research articles to elevate them and move away from researchers and libraries having to pay the APCs of established open access journals?
Oh, if I knew the answer to that, I would be rich.
I think you touched on it a little bit, but maybe I guess they're just wanting a little bit more information.
Yeah, I think something that I think does work is if we use software like OJS, Open Journal Systems, and we help researchers and authors build their own journal. We've seen really big success with that in, I'd say, 3 pretty core OJS journals we have. And the more success and longevity those journals have, the more people are going to want to publish in them, right? It really comes down to that prestige factor, where if you can have an open journal that can get to a comparable point of prestige, you'll see more people moving toward platforms like that. But until that happens, I think most will gravitate toward traditional journals, and publishing in gold open access, they're going to pay the APCs. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, it's a long-term, it needs long-term strategies. I think you can't just change the mindset overnight.
Yeah.
And say, the place to go. All right, thank you. Thank you for your insights. We have a few more questions coming in. Let me just scan them real quickly. Okay, we have a question here. Let me just see this. A question here for Sosul. Sosul, we have something here around change management. So obviously what you talked about was higher education institutions changing curricula, mixing up departments, interdisciplinary approaches, also putting a lot of emphasis on teachers to include sustainability and SDGs into their curriculum. That obviously there's a significant change management that has to take place for that to happen. We know that teachers, all teachers everywhere seem to have full schedules. They're always sort of scheduled to the brim, and taking on new approaches, it's often met with kind of resistance, right? About where do I have the time to do this? Where am I going to find the time? How do I have the resources to pull this off? So the question here is, in what ways, either traditional or non-traditional, can higher education institutions support teachers to drive that change management that's needed for SDGs to be truly embedded in the curriculum? Oh, sorry, you're muted, Sosul. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You seem to have gone on mute again. There we go.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we in Kuwait, we have the 2035 Kuwait plan, new Kuwait. So the government is really behind these initiatives, and they are providing incentives to different institutions. They are also demanding that some of these sustainability programs, environmental awareness is embedded into the courses and the programs. So at one level, one of the stakeholders, which is the government, is interested in it. And within the framework of New Kuwait, they are expecting universities to come up with all these reformed educational programs and curricula. So yes, there is resistance at every level. There is resistance at the academic institutional level because there's lack of knowledge. We need to learn things. There is also resistance at the level of teachers because it's not easy to gain an overview of all the other different majors and be able to come together with an interdisciplinary approach to teaching certain courses. It needs a lot of collaboration, a lot of time and effort, not only to gain the knowledge and the know-how, but also to be open to see what other courses are doing and how can we collaborate together to drive these concepts of sustainability, which is in everything. I mean, it's not a matter, sometimes it's not a matter of adding to the curriculum. Sometimes it's just a matter of being aware of what I'm teaching and how this relates to sustainability. So if we can just highlight those points to the teachers, to the academic faculty, and really connect it to the different SDGs of the United Nations, they might be willing to put in that little bit of effort, because it's not like they are going to scrap everything and start everything from new. They're going to sometimes add, enrich their programs, and sometimes just highlight whatever they are teaching and help students see the connection. The main change that should happen with the teachers is the teaching methodology. And that is where you have more resistance, because it is not easy to take on a completely different teaching approach. It needs a lot of preparation, psychological switching for teachers to be able to move on to more student-centered and project-based, work-based kind of like not just teaching but also assessing. The teacher will tell me, okay, we're going to do this like collaborative effort with a company which is going to be environmentally friendly and produce some kind of like containers which are degradable, let's say. Okay, we're going to get one part of the course, our students involved in that with that industry, for example. The teachers are reluctant to get into these kind of collaborations because at the end of the day, they are accountable for their students' learning. They will ask you, how am I going to judge what they learn and what they gain from that hands-on work experience? So there is a lot of lack of knowledge and also fear, because eventually the academic faculty is very much accountable to the student learning objectives or the course learning objectives, and they need to show outcomes at the end of the semester. So that is one level of resistance, where on the one hand you have lack of know-how. I don't know how to do this. On the other hand, there is this resistance of psychological switch. How am I going to give this out of my hands and allow the company with the project, through the project, for my students to learn through it? So that is this psychological switch that needs to happen. On the other level, the incentives that the organizations could give, probably we have a lot of organizations that help with professional development. If we get funding for having more conferences and workshops and specialized teams where environmental sustainability topics will be a priority, then we can address those teacher development goals on the national level, in Kuwait in general, and also institutionally. Every institution within itself, they can maybe dedicate 1 or 2 faculty members to get more informed about these issues and then come and feed on the rest. So there are things that could be done. There's not lack of funding, but there is lack of probably seeing the importance of these things and the need to incorporate this, because eventually, especially our region is much more impacted by global warming, by lack of greenery, and because we are also the most probably the population which is, because of the financial situation, people rarely think of being environmentally friendly in their consumption, in their everyday life. I don't know if I addressed the question.
No, very extensively. Thank you very much. Very extensive. I think it's really interesting what you said about that the change management should happen on the teaching methodology level, primarily, because I can imagine if you're able to shift the teaching methodology to a student-centered learning approach, one of project-based learning, inquiry-led learning, authentic assessment, then sort of the curricula will adapt itself naturally. It lends itself much more to an interdisciplinary approach. Obviously, it's much easier to sort of build in those different projects and start thinking about sustainability that way. I think that's very insightful. Obviously, you've worked all around the world. I mentioned Armenia and the Netherlands when I introduced you. I'm sure there's other places as well. Have you seen this change management towards a student-centered teaching approach, towards sort of 21st century teaching methods? Have you seen this take place elsewhere in the world? And how did others describe that change management?
Definitely, it's a much more advanced level in other countries than in the region. In Kuwait, particularly, I can speak about Kuwait because that is what I'm familiar with. But in other areas, I was in the States when I was doing my second master's degree. In California, we had a lot of hands-on learning and despite the fact that my field was not very much related to environment, but we did a lot of projects where students were made aware of these equality, equity, justice issues. Now, it wasn't education in this regard, but it was other aspects of the United Nations sustainability goals that we were working on. And most of the time, what you see is that it's not the lack of willingness to do, but the lack of knowledge to do. And also, we don't know where to start from here in Kuwait, in the Gulf. We don't know where to start from. We feel that we need the knowledge, we need the expertise, we need also the confidence to bring on the change and to keep going.
Right. Yeah. I think you touched on something very, very important there, the confidence building. It's not just in teaching methodologies. Anywhere where change management is needed, confidence building is usually the most important, but also the most difficult thing to do. So thank you for that. Thank you for your comments. We have one more question coming in here. Let me just read it real quickly. Okay, this is a question for Mohit. This is around open source solutions for librarians. Mohit, you presented on Koha and sort of its advantage, especially around the community around it, and its advantage around navigation, user navigation. Can you speak a little bit towards the challenges of open source solutions? Do they work for managing all tasks and responsibilities of librarians? Are there still limitations? We obviously have heard of a lot of the advantages, but what are some of the challenges that you faced around using open source solutions?
Yeah, I'll definitely speak on this. So challenges, with the open source software, like if you see Koha and DSpace, they are like this community are they're so strong, and now they are easily installed in a, like if you 5 or 6 commands are there with the terminals and you can go. One of the challenges, but I see like with the previous organization when I was in the Amarkantak in one of the university, one of the challenge was the network connectivity. Second is the issue was like I have the lack of staff who are not aware about those, because the open source software you have to do things while installing. You should have the understanding of Linux, Apache, MySQL, and then Perl, or if you are going for DSpace, Java and PostgreSQL. So the community they provide, but there are like lectures and tutorials are there. But this is one of the challenge. Another challenge what I face, if I speak about related to mainly related to DSpace 7, is that it has been not that in a way has been developed in a stable way, because now they have transformed really to a two like there are like two interface was there, now there are a single interface, but that's one of the challenge. And like many of the times in the libraries we don't have the infrastructure related to like infrastructure server kind. We need one server, or we need the like proper the network connectivity between those servers. So what I see the challenge is to implement this software. Only two challenge I see. One is we need the more training on this software, so that there are not many training on this software have been going up, but we need the training on the system part. We need to train the librarians to know that this is the Linux and this is what are the basic commands are there, because we are so we have made ourselves so flexible that we are habitual of using mouse. Okay, and we are not going with any of the analysis. I don't know, like I was just surveying my colleagues on that. If you are using Windows, how many of you have you used CMD, like command prompt in the Windows? So that's one of the challenge. Another challenge with the existing software is those like library should be supported with enough infrastructure. And with the latest version software, if I speak about the challenges, is that they are not that much, they have been come up with a big aim, but they are working on that. And if we all work on that, because we are, you see, what I say myself as a lurker, okay, we are just using the software, but as a, like, if I say of myself that I am using the software, but I'm not adding anything to the community. Okay, so this time the open source community also require that we should also contribute something, like we should add something to the community page, we should add something, how to add the reports. There are a lot many contents, or a lot many professionals are doing up, but while only our task is that if something is available free to us, at least we should give something. So if we can give those things, so I think those challenges can be also tackled down. Yeah, so I see only these two challenges, and it depends on the, like I speak it down, like when I was doing my education and I was going for one of the school in my native area. So I asked them, why not you move open source software and all? So that they gave a reply that I say that we can afford it, the software, why we need open source software, and I don't need. So that kind of thing, that's a perception we have to change. That's another challenge. If you are like, if you are willing to do and your boss or your authority is not willing to, that's a perception. So we need to aware, not only librarians, we need to aware the these administrator, also policy makers, that these are the softwares which doesn't require any amount and we can use those things. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mohit. That's very insightful, very extensive explanation there. It's appreciated. It's interesting what you said about us having to give back when we're using open source software. I've faced that myself with using open source software, that certain things just weren't available. I didn't know how to move forward. Sometimes you can feel a little bit stuck. So it's always great if there's a community contributing.
Yeah, the same thing is happening with the Coral. Coral is the open source software for electronic resource management system, but it has come up, but it has not have been adapted, and the community is not so strong. And that's why, if the community is not strong, like we have installed this Coral in our library, and only thing what we are facing is the Gmail configuration. Okay, and that version mapping, and we couldn't do it. And we have seen on the lot many on the Google, every time we search on Google, it gives Coral as not a software, it has a different thing. So yeah, so that's why we need to be the more active in the community side, and everything will be sold it down.
Great. Yeah, agreed.